There is a particular kind of relief that appears when the room goes quiet. Not the relief of escaping something unpleasant, something deeper than that. A settling, a soft release in the chest, the feeling that nothing is asking for your face, your voice, or your attention right now. For some people, that is not loneliness, it is recovery. You can see it after a long day. Someone closes the door, drops the keys, and their whole body changes. The shoulders unclench, the jaw loosens, the mind stops bracing for the next interruption. To an outsider, that can look like withdrawal. Inside, it feels like oxygen. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you are the person who leaves early and feels better 5 minutes later. Not because people are bad, not because connection is meaningless, because your attention has a different budget, and once it is spent, silence starts paying it back. That is the first thing people misunderstand. They hear, "I like being alone," and translate it as, "I do not need anyone." Those are not the same sentence. Solitude is not a rejection of connection. It is a different way of protecting the mind. And from far away, solitude and loneliness can look almost identical. Both are quiet. Both happen in empty rooms. Both can involve the same chair, the same window, the same afternoon light. But one is chosen space. The other is unwanted absence. That difference changes everything. If being alone feels better to you, that does not make you strange. It makes you specific. Some people are built to tolerate a flood of input. Others hit saturation sooner. Neither one is broken. I am not talking about pathology. I am talking about temperament. Meet Daniel, 39, operations manager. Good with people, steady under pressure, not hungry for constant company. He can spend hours in a room with little conversation and feel perfectly fine. Then he takes a walk by himself. No headphones, no calls. And suddenly, his mind starts doing real work. Not busy work, not distraction. Real work. One idea connects to another. A conversation from earlier comes back with new edges. A decision that felt foggy starts to sharpen. He is not trying to think harder. He is simply giving his mind enough room to finish a thought. That is what solitude does for some people. It creates space for the inner system to arrange itself. Ideas stop competing for the same lane. Thoughts stop performing. Sensations stop shouting. And what remains is often the thing that was buried under noise all day. This is why the word boredom means something different depending on who is holding it. For some people, boredom is a problem with the room. For others, it is a problem with the inner world. If your inner world is active, a quiet afternoon can feel rich. A long walk can feel like a conversation. A blank page can feel like an invitation. If your inner world is underfed, the same hour can feel unbearable. The same room can feel too large. The same silence can start to itch. And here is where the myth begins. People assume that a packed calendar means a full life. Plans, messages, noise, background television, constant pings, constant motion, as if activity itself is proof of depth. Actually, no. Let me be more precise. Sometimes it only proves that the room was never quiet enough to hear yourself think. The culture praises motion. It rewards responsiveness. It treats interruption like importance. A notification arrives, and the brain reacts as if something urgent just happened. A message lands, and the nervous system lights up. Another tab opens. Another sound enters. Another demand gets laid on the table. But a busy surface is not the same thing as a meaningful life. A lake can look restless in the wind, while the deep water stays untouched. For introverts, silence is often not empty. It is useful. It is where the system stops performing and starts processing. You are not trying to disappear from life. You are trying to recover the bandwidth to meet it well. That is why some people feel more like themselves after an hour alone. Not because they hate relationships, because relationships cost attention, and attention is finite. When the attention budget gets low, solitude becomes a deposit. Quiet gives something back. Look, that distinction matters. A person can love family, friends, and community and still need real solitude. Not stolen minutes between obligations. Not the half hour after everybody else falls asleep. Not a rushed car ride full of unresolved conversations. Actual solitude. The kind where no one is waiting for a reply. In that space, the mind starts sorting. The The conversation you had earlier returns with more clarity. The decision that felt tangled begins to separate. The emotional residue from the day starts to settle instead of circulating endlessly. That is not laziness, it is integration. Some people do their best thinking in motion, others do it in stillness, and some need both. But the quieter mind often notices patterns the crowded mind misses, not because it is superior by default, because it is less interrupted. Here is the thing. The brain does not shut down when the outside world gets quiet. In many people, it shifts into a different mode. Researchers often talk about the default mode network. That is the system involved in memory, self-reflection, internal simulation, and stitching experience together. In plain language, it means this. When nothing outside is demanding your attention, the mind starts connecting the inside. It replays events. It forecasts possibilities. It compares what happened with what might happen next. It builds meaning from fragments. Silence is not the absence of thought. For some people, it is where thought becomes coherent. And that is why solitude can feel invisible from the outside. Nothing dramatic happens. No applause, no movement, no visible achievement. But inside, a sorting process is taking place. The mind is clearing the desk. Brain studies on rest and inward focus keep pointing in the same broad direction. The resting brain is not a dead brain. It is an active one. It is just working in a quieter register. And for people with strong inner lives, that register can feel deeply satisfying. Not flashy, not loud, just right. There is also a temperament issue here. Some people are more sensitive to stimulation. A loud room lands harder. A crowded schedule wears them down faster. A flood of messages turns into friction. A day full of people can leave them feeling as if they have been translated too many times. So when they find solitude, it is not escape. It is recovery. It is nervous system hygiene. Some people call that social energy. That is a useful phrase, but it is incomplete. The real issue is not whether you like people. It is how long your mind stays sharp while orbiting them. For some, that window is long. For others, it closes faster. Neither one is a flaw. Actually, no. Let me be careful. Quiet does not automatically equal depth, and extroversion does not automatically equal shallowness. The point is simpler. Different people regulate with different inputs, and that is why the same environment can feel nourishing to one person and draining to another. The difference is real, it matters, but it is not moral. That is important. This is not an argument for isolation. Solitude is a tool, not a prison. If it leaves you detached, numb, or smaller over time, something has shifted. If it makes you less able to re-enter life, then it has stopped being restorative. Healthy quiet should return you to the world, not remove you from it. If you are someone who thrives in solitude, your job is not to apologize for it. Your job is to use it well, not to hide in it. To use it as a place where your mind can sort signal from noise. That is a skill. Like any skill, it gets better with structure. So here is the tool. Do not rush into solitude and fill it immediately. Give the first few minutes nothing to do. No phone, no audio, no background stimulation. No search for a quick hit of distraction. Just let your system notice that it is safe. That tiny pause often changes everything. Then ask one honest question. What am I carrying that is not mine? What decision needs less pressure, not more? What thought keeps returning because it wants attention, not panic? One question is enough. Let the mind answer in its own time. If nothing comes right away, do not force it. Silence is not a vending machine. Sometimes the first answer is just your breathing slowing down. Sometimes it is your shoulders dropping. Sometimes it is the realization that you have been bracing against noise for longer than you noticed. That counts too. After that, do one slow thing. Read a page. Walk a block, write 3 lines, wash the cup, sit near the window, fold the shirt, make tea, and actually taste it. The point is not productivity. The point is to give your inner world a container. Without one, solitude can drift into numbness. With one, it becomes restorative. This is where many people get confused. They think solitude means doing nothing, but real solitude is not empty time. It is protected attention. It is time without performance, time without correction, time where the self can stop translating for other people. That is why the best solitary routines are usually simple. A chair, a walk, a notebook, a window, a table with no clutter, a room with one lamp, a few minutes of clean silence. Nothing theatrical. You do not need a spiritual ceremony. You need a clear channel for attention. And that is also why solitude can unlock creativity. Ideas often need distance before they become visible. A joke lands later. A plan clarifies later. A feeling makes sense later. A sentence arrives after the conversation is over. A solution appears during a walk, not during the struggle to force it. The mind needs room to compare notes with itself. Crowding that process can flatten it. Think about how often the best line in a conversation arrives on the drive home, or how often a problem in the afternoon seems obvious by night. That delay is not wasted time. It is the mind finishing its work. Some of the best thinking happens after the meeting, after the text, after the noise. Not because the noise was useless, because the mind needed quiet to complete the loop. You are not less social when you need that. You are just more honest about how you process. At the same time, solitude should not become a hiding place for fear. There is a difference between restorative quiet and constant retreat. One leaves you clearer, the other leaves you smaller. If alone time always feels like relief and never like growth, that is worth noticing. But do not rush to judge it either. Sometimes a person needs quiet before they can tolerate closeness well. Sometimes solitude is the bridge, not the destination. And sometimes the body is simply asking for fewer inputs today. That is not a failure. That is information. And if your need for quiet changes over time, that is normal too. Life stages change capacity. Stress changes capacity. Responsibility changes capacity. Grief changes capacity. Even a season of too much noise can make the nervous system more protective than usual. The goal is not to freeze your temperament. The goal is to notice what restores you now. Research on personality and resting attention keeps pointing to the same broad truth. Not everyone is built for the same level of stimulation. Not every mind wants the same pace. And that is why one person feels starved in silence, while another feels renewed. The difference is not a character test. It is biology and temperament working together. The best version of solitude does not make you disappear from life. It makes you available to it. You return with better judgment, cleaner boundaries, less noise in the head, more room for what matters. That is why quiet can look invisible from the outside and life-giving from the inside. When you stop fighting your need for quiet, the room changes. The same chair becomes more useful. The same walk becomes richer. The same window becomes a place to think instead of a place to wait. The same silence stops feeling like absence and starts feeling like a place where your mind can land. Maybe that is the sentence people need most. Being alone is not the same as being empty, and needing solitude is not the same as needing less of life. Sometimes it means you are finally close enough to yourself to think clearly. So if the world has told you that being alone is a problem, slow down. Ask whether the problem is actually loneliness, or whether you have simply found the conditions in which your mind works best. Those are very different realities, and confusing them creates a lot of unnecessary shame. You do not need to perform constant enthusiasm to prove you are healthy. You do not need to fill every silence to prove you are connected. Sometimes the most mature thing a mind can do is step back, listen, integrate, then re-enter the room with more presence than before. You can leave the party early. You can sit by the window. You can take the longer walk home. You can turn off the music and let the day breathe for a minute. None of that makes you less human. It just means your system speaks a quieter language. The pattern is real. Some people are renewed by company. Some are renewed by quiet. Neither one is a defect. So the next time solitude feels good, do not rush to explain it away. Notice it. Respect it. And if this is your pattern, tell me in the comments. When you are alone, do you feel drained or restored?